On the phone, we have a gentleman who played for the Cubs back in the 40s, way before I was born, because I was born in 71, but it was about the time Elliott was born, my co-host, Lennie
Right.
Merullo. How you doing, Lenny?
Okay. I'm doing fine. Yeah.
So, Lenny, you grew up in Massachusetts. Were you a Red Sox fan growing up?
I grew up in East Boston, which is just outside of Boston.
So, did you follow the Red Sox?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Try to see as many games as I could. Oh, yeah. I'll see any baseball game that's around, anyone.
Did you have a favorite Red Sox back then?
Oh, they were all my favorite players.
What?
If they were ball players, they were favorites of mine.
Okay.
You grew up in an Italian family. I'm Italian, too. What did your parents think about ball players?
What did the Italians think about ball players?
What did your parents think when you said you wanted to be a baseball player?
Well, they used to say, the first thing you got to do is get yourself a job to bring home some money. You didn't mean a thing to the family until you brought a little money home to help. As I was one of 13 children.
What happened when Wrigley gave you your first contract? How did that come about?
Well, when Mr. Wrigley asked me to come out to Chicago to meet him, and that was a treat itself, just to meet Mr. Wrigley, the owner of a major league ball club. That in itself was something. But anyway, just a trip to Chicago meant so much.
Back then, how did they hear about you in Chicago?
Well, just to see Chicago and everything about Chicago was about 18 times the size of what I thought it was. You know, that was a big, big city. Ralph Wheeler was a Boston sports writer, and I was really what you call a protege of this Mr. Wheeler, who was a sports writer for the Boston Herald, but he also ran the Suburban League. He was the head of the Suburban League. He had charge of the Suburban League. So he knew all the ball players around. And if he saw a kid that he particularly cared for, he made sure that that kid was taken care of. And I happened to be one of them.
How much did you get when you signed with the Cubs?
How much did I get?
Yes.
It wasn't a matter of money. It was just a matter of getting started in baseball. Yeah.
What did your parents say when they found out you signed a contract?
Well, hey. Well, I was always a big thing to my parents, but baseball was just secondary to them. They just wanted to be sure that I was making my way in life. And when I got a chance to play baseball, that was a big, big thing. From then on, the word in the house was, in Italian, "Zappa," means go to work. But with me, it was not "Zappa." Get out and play ball. It's the only way to make a living. When I came home with a little bonus, a little money, just for playing a ball player, they started to kick the younger ones out of the house. Get out and play. Being one of 12 children, that was a break for the other kids. Yeah.
How young did you start playing baseball, and when did you know you were good?
I can remember playing baseball the day I was born. With Byron Street, that was our ball field. Byron Street in East Boston, which is not too far from the Boston airport. But we were always playing. The cops used to patrol Byron Street just to, hey kids, you gotta let the traffic go by. You can't be playing ball all the time. You gotta let the traffic go by. Yeah.
I see that you met a baseball icon when you were young, Babe Ruth. What was that meeting like?
Oh, hey, I'll never forget. I wish I had never saw him, because there was this big fat slob sitting there half naked, and I'm getting a good look, and I says, "That's Babe Ruth." So I wish the hell I didn't see him.
Was he still playing or was he retired?
No, he was. The Boston Braves has just made a deal for him to play with the Boston Braves, because he would be an attraction to bring the fans out just to see him play. Even at this stage, even though he was way out of shape, they bought him at a stage where he was all done as a ball player. But just to be in the same area as Babe Ruth, that meant a great deal.
And he still hit a few home runs with the Boston Braves too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Were you a bigger Braves fan or a Red Sox fan?
I was a National League fan. National League was a big thing. I thought American League was just another. Hey, you had nothing else to do. You went to American League game. That's not exactly the way it was, but that was our attitude. The Boston Braves and Braves Field, out at Braves Field Ballpark, that was just to be able to walk in the Braves Field in Boston, out in Commonwealth Avenue. That was something.
Now, you played in the Cape Cod Baseball League. Now, nowadays, that's where a lot of future pro ball players play. What was it like back in the 30s?
And the Cape Cod League was the place to go. You got $10 a week, and you also got your board and room. And I played for the Hyannis, what they call it, the town was Barnstable on Cape Cod. I played for Barnstable, Cape Cod, and we ate at the restaurant. All we did was sign the checks 3 times a day, and we ate like hell.
That sounds pretty good during the Depression.
That's pretty good, is right. It was damn good.
What was Charlie Grimm like?
Charlie Grimm was Charlie Grimm. Why, he was a fun guy. He was loose as a goose. He used to coach third base all the time. Kept very, very busy. Went through a lot of antics on third base. In other words, if a fella wasn't too good at the plate, he'd go into a feint or something like that. He was always doing something. The fans loved Charlie Grimm. They loved the guy.
What was the 45 World Series like?
Well, it was something to be a part of that, boy. You see, and then to get a paycheck for playing in the 45 series, that was something. I don't know how much it got at that time. I think it was $600. We got something like that. But that was a lot of money back in those days.
When you were in the World Series, did you think you'd make it another year, or you thought there was a one-shot opportunity?
Hey, believe me, as a ball player, we all felt the same way. We all felt that someday we were going to play in the big leagues. Any kid that played baseball, that was his dream, and that's what he really, really believed in. He was going to be playing in the major leagues. That's why he played.
Did you think that the Cubs would be back in it again in 46?
Yeah, would you think that the Cubs would be back in it? I always felt that the Cubs were, the Cubs were a good organization. They had good leaders, and they were always doing something to make sure that they stayed a good ball club and could only get better as they went along. That was the Cubs organization.
What was your roommate like, Phil Cavaretta?
Well, you had to know Phil. He was a hot. I happen to be a Neapolitan Italian. My folks are from Naples. Phil Cavaretta's folks were from Sicily. They were known as hotheads and hot-tempered, and that was Phil Cavaretta. You had to be very, very careful what you said and what you did around him, because he would bite your head off. That was Phil Cavaretta. But that's what made him such a great competitor. And just a young fella, 17 years old, he was playing in the big leagues. Did you know that? He was 17 years old and playing in the big leagues.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. And he was, Phil, as a first baseman, he was not a big guy. Yeah, he was top 5'10", 5'11" at the tops, and weighed about 160 pounds. And a really little guy. That's why later on, when they got a bigger guy by the name of Heinz Becker to play first base, that's when Phil went to left field. And Phil never had a strong arm, but that's where he played, left field.
I see that you got a piece of history, a Babe Ruth bat. How did you get that?
A fellow, my roommate was a fellow by the name of Don Johnson, my second baseman, and his father played on the same ball club as Babe Ruth. And when he played with Babe Ruth, he had taken one of Babe Ruth's bat, and he kept it, and he gave it to his son, and his son gave it to me.
That bat's probably worth more than you earned your whole career with the Cubs.
Hey, it's a good crack.
When the Cubs brought you up in September of 1941 and you first saw Wrigley Field, what did you think of the ballpark?
Wrigley Field?
Yes, sir.
Oh, there's only one ballpark. That's Wrigley Field. That ivy-covered walls out there. It's beautiful, beautiful. And the neighborhood itself is in a very nice neighborhood of Chicago. I remember the fire station out in left field. The cops were our best fans. The firemen were our best fans.
Now wait, can you
say... Fire station in left field.
How do you compare Fenway to Wrigley?
How do I compare it, Fenway with Wrigley? No comparison. Wrigley Field, the ivy-covered walls out there. It's just a beautiful, beautiful area. Yeah.
Now, you recently were back at Wrigley as part of the ballpark's 100th anniversary. What was that experience like?
I always had a soft spot for Wrigley Field. It just makes me feel warm all over. Yeah. I was out there just recently, and I still, just can't get over the fact that I was part of it.
When you started in baseball, there was only white players. There was no black players. How did it change when Jackie Robinson came and started playing with the Brooklyn Dodgers?
Oh, well, hey, we were not too tickled about Jackie Robinson coming into baseball, believe me. And I was the one that was supposed to have made it tougher for him to be welcome into baseball because I can remember we had a good catcher with a great arm, and Jackie Robinson loved to, when he got on first base, he's going to be stealing second, and he always took a big lead off, and we used to try to pick him off and take him, but our catcher had a great arm, and we had a play on. In other words, when I showed part of my body on this side of the base runner, when he could see my body on that side, that means I'm going to be going for the bag. Just turn around and throw, I'll be there. Well, it worked, and I got to second base, and I even had to wait a split second for Jackie Robinson to come in, and he used to come in head first, and when he came in head first, I tagged him, and I happened to tag him on the face because that was the first thing that came to his head came to the bag. So I tagged him exceptionally hard across the face, and he got up with fire in his eyes and ready to tear me apart. And as ready as I was for him, they told me, don't do anything to start what you could start a riot. You could have the south side coming up to the north side, and you wouldn't be able to stop it. So you had to be very, very careful.
For your career, you hit 6 home runs. Do you remember them all?
Oh, of course I do. I think every ball I ever hit, if before they went out of the ballpark, I fell flat on my face at first base, watching the ball go over the fence.
Is that how you got the nickname Boots?
It had that kind of power, but just to hit a home run was something special.
How did you get your nickname Boots?
How did I get my nickname Boots?
Yes.
Well, when my oldest son was born, I was very, very busy with my wife in the hospital and so forth and so on. So, but anyway, I was very, very busy, and when I got back, I got the news that my son was born. I went out to the ballpark. I must have been very, very tired and didn't have my head into the game. And if they hit me another ball, I would have booted that one. I made that 4 errors in 1 inning. And that's where he got his name, Boots.
Then you went to go scout for the Cubs. How did that come about?
Well, they just kept me on the payroll just to, because they know that I was always, at ball games and look up the ball players and so forth. And I recommended some pretty good ball players that eventually were signed by the Cubs. They appreciated the fact that I was really loved the game of baseball and was a very, very hard worker, and I had the Chicago Cubs organization in mind.
Who was the best player you ever found?
Well, the best player that people remember that I ever signed, I signed a few of them, but the best player, the easiest throwing guy with a nice, easy motion was 6'3" Mo Grabowski from Hartford, Connecticut, right out of college. Mo Grabowski.
I remember him.
Yeah, I remember him as well. He was a pretty good pitcher.
Big Mo. Well, he still holds an all-time record I forget what the record that he holds today. I forget just what it is, but the most strikeouts in an extra inning game or something like that. Yeah.
How come you never became a manager?
Well, I never gave it a thought. I was a player, and I enjoyed being a player, and I like being part of baseball. And, hey, I'm still part of baseball. So what else would you need?
You're right. I want to know. Did you know Jack Brickhouse? Did he ever
he was a legend.
Did he ever buy a meal?
If he did, I would never have forgotten it. Jack Brickhouse, yeah. Oh, he was a legend.
Grabowski also is remembered by some people for giving up the 3,000th hit to Stan Musial in 1958. So that's how I remember him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was a good one. He had such a nice, easy motion, and that motion of his, it was kind of not sidearm, but just about 3/4. And when he kind of glided into the hitter, and his ball would what we call an in shoot, would start about the middle of the plate, would break in. The hitters never could understand why every ball they hit was hit on the handle of the bat. This ball seemed to be bearing in on him all the time. That was his natural motion. He didn't know why the hell he was so effective, but that's why he was effective. Just that nice, easy motion. You think you were going to have a strike, and the ball was always inside. You know, my father always had made 3 barrels of wine a year. And there wasn't an Irishman in the neighborhood that wasn't a friend of the family's. They were always making an excuse to come visit, because the first thing any visitors would come to visit my mother or my father or any one of us, the first thing we were sent down to the basement to fill up the jug of wine and put it on the table. There was always a glass of my father's wine, and he made the best wine that you could possibly drink.
What?
My grandfather came to live with us later on in life. We went to Italy, brought him over to this country, and he lived with us. And he made a ritual of having his glass of wine with every meal. And my mother would pour it for him. He always sat between my mother and father. It was my grandfather. His name was John, and he was great to have living with us because he was a lot of fun, and we used to tease the hell out of him, just hitting him with a breadcrumb. Just as he was going to have his glass of wine, we hit him with about different breadcrumbs from different parts of the kitchen table, and he'd make off that he was angry as hell at us. But it was always having fun having dinner.
Who stomped the grapes?
Who stopped them? Now, what you hear about that? They say you can tell an Italian by looking at his feet. His feet are purple; they're Italian. Yeah. No, we never had to do that.
Who is the?
We had grapevines all over that big piece of land that we had here in East Boston, and when it was time in the fall to pick the grapes, we had more help to help us because we also complimented the grapes we picked from the yard. I don't know how many bushels we got from that, but we all went to the freight yards over in Charlestown, and we would order maybe 300 bushels of grapes to make what we actually would make 3 barrels of the best wine that you could drink. I still have my father's wine press that they used then.
Do you still make it? Do you or your sons make it?
No, I don't use it, but I still have it as a memento. I have it right in my dining room.
Who was the best player you ever saw play?
Best ball player?
Yes.
There were so many good ball players. If I had some time to think about it, I could tell you, but there were so many that I knew that were outstanding ball players, good ones.
Okay.
Yeah, and my roommate Phil Cavaretta was as good as they come, and he was not a big guy.
What about
he was a left-hander all the way. He was a Sicilian, and he was right from Chicago. Lived right near the ballpark in Chicago, and he was playing in the big leagues when he was 17 years old.
What about DiMaggio?
Joe DiMaggio?
Yes.
Yeah, Phil Cavaretta was bigger than me than Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio was outstanding, great big guy. Used to stand his feet wide apart, and boy, he could hit.
Okay, who was a better ball player, you or your grandson Matt?
Oh, well, I wouldn't even. We were two opposites. He was a left-hand hitter. I was a right-hand hitter. But no, he was a good ball player and a good athlete, all-around athlete, football player, baseball player.
So
that was my grandson.
So when the Cubs make the World Series, are you going to come back and sing?
If they ask me to, I'll be there. And I'm in good voice anytime they ask me to sing.
You were ready to sing it again last weekend.
Out to the ball game, take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back. It's root, root, root for the home team. How's that?
Sounds great.
Excellent.